Welcome to this quick instructional video talking about the new SLE and PIP online feedback system that we'll be using from November 2013. Okay, the reason we've decided to introduce this online assessment program is to get rid of the pass card system, which hasn't been working, and also that PIP has been totally dependent on test scores. So what we're starting to do is separate how we evaluate and then how we test students. Okay, so first of all, we're going to take a look at SLE. Okay, as these are all 2-month courses, you'll now be doing it twice a month. So really we can call this bi-weekly feedback. So let's take a look at the first one. Okay, so on the 7th and 14th day of each month, you will go online to Pagoda Academy and you'll use the rubric then to assess how well they've been doing in class. And this is very important. This is not a test. It's simply to look at how well they've been doing at the different areas that they know for SLE. So it's a good idea at the beginning of the month when you're first meeting the class to go through these different categories. Okay, so you can see here we have several things: participation and content communication. So this means, first of all, obviously participation, as this is a fluency-based class. How are they participating? And this is universal. It's not based on level. So somebody at a very low level could do very well in participation, and also content communication, which is how well they're doing the activity, how well they're using the language. The other three categories, grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation, have less of a percentage attached to them, because even though they are important, these two are the most important. Okay, and we'll take a look at how this looks online in a minute. Okay, but it is important that you are using the rubric, that you're not guessing at these, because if you start to guess, you might end up having a very kind of arbitrary evaluation system. Okay, so let's take a look at the rubric. All right, so like I said, the 5 categories, and the whole thing is out of 20 points. Okay, so you go on, and it's important that you get to know this a little bit before you use it for the first time. Otherwise, you're going to find it too difficult to use. So like I said, it is very universal. Participation, for example. 1 point is simply student answered when directly questioned, but we didn't have any expansion, and often they might not participate very well in group activities. So that could describe somebody up at level 6, or it could describe somebody at level 1. Whereas here at 3 points, student engaging in activities well, asking questions, showing an interest, again, could be a very, very low level student. Okay, so unlike the old pass card system that the higher the points, the more difficult it was for somebody at level 1, for example, to get, here it's much more universal. So these first two, like I said, participation and content communication, are the most important. You will never have to worry about percentages. You just have to worry about giving them a score out of 20, and the computer will convert it. So they will know that these are more important. But it would be good at the beginning of the month to tell them that. These are the 2 crucial things that we're looking at, and these other areas, which in the past have maybe had a higher percentage, or as test prep, for example, will be lower. Okay. So at the moment, we're looking at students getting an average of 15 out of 20 over the course of the 3 assessments that you will do. In your first month, if somebody gets 17 or higher, they're what we're calling a jump up candidate. So you should make a note of that. Did they get 17 plus out of 20 in the first month? And then on the very last day of class, this report can be printed out. When you've entered it, though, the student can go on and take a look. So let's take a look at what it looks like online. Okay, so all of you should be familiar with this site. This is just pagodaacademy.com/admin. So whereas previously you will have gone in and it's the same thing, but now here you have this column SLE PIP feedback. So you can ignore the others and go directly to that one. And all your classes will be here. So all you need to do is click on the class. Okay, and then you have your students' names here. And then over in the corner here, you have 1 and 2. So 1 is for the first feedback in the month, and 2 is for the second feedback in the month. So looking at SLE, let's click on number 1 first of all. So here then I have the menu. So I know the student, the class, the name of the student, and then I simply go on here and I decide, using the rubric, what did they get? So this student got 1 for participation, maybe 2, or 1 for fluency. In their grammar, though, they were doing quite well. Same as in this, go through, add them in, and they will get their total score then for their feedback out of 20. Okay, and here is the language directly from the rubric. Okay, so you can check as you're doing it, is this what I want to say about the student? And the good thing about this is it means we're all using the same language, we're not using different language. So if your student questions you on this, you can expand on the rubric language, okay, rather than coming up with another system. The student actually will get this in English and Korean, okay, so all levels will be able to understand what you've put. Okay, down here then you have 2 boxes. One is for strengths. So here what we would like you to do is look at what did I grade them highly on? But also, is there something maybe outside of that that they do very well? So here we could say, for example, enthusiasm is part of participation, but not completely. So you might want to give them some feedback on that, how well they're doing, what are they doing well in? And then underneath, we have the advice box. So this is really where you should look at where are they scoring lower at these things. So rather than just saying you should do this, you now actually have to give some good advice. So if you have students that are not doing very well in participation, here's where I would say you seem a little shy in the class, and then give them some advice. Maybe they should join a study group, or let me know if there are certain activities that they prefer. They can email me or whatever. And again, if you see that their pronunciation is getting low, you might recommend maybe you should do some more listening outside of class. Recommend the SLE online at Pagoda 21. They should listen to more listenings outside of the class. But give them something concrete here. We want to get rid of the old system in the pass cards where people would write, well done, next level, or need to try harder, things that is not constructive at all. So make sure, as well as praising what they do well, that you also look at what they can do better. And when you finish there, you simply press the red button here, and that will be saved on the system, and also they will get a text message to say they can go online and have a look at it. And then when you come into the second time, you simply go back to SLE PIP and you hit second and do the same thing. Okay, and over the 2 months, we'll just keep a track of what is their average, because like I said, in order to automatically go to the next level, they have to have had an average of 15. So if 1 month they got 13, the next they got 16, the next they got 15, that would still be an average of 15. And also border situations. So if you have students who are getting 14 points, but you feel they could go to the next level, you just need to justify it here. Okay, but the average is around 14. And like I said, jump-up candidates are more around 17 points, which would mean that they may have placed into a slightly lower level than they could have done. Okay, but most people will stay on for the 2 months. Okay, so let's take a look at PIP then. So it's in the same area of SLE, but the way in which we're evaluating the students is a little bit different. So whereas before in PIP we had simply a test score, and the test score decided if they would pass to the next level. So the old system had smaller percentages for how they did in class, and then a large percentage for the test. And as we know from falling enrollment, a lot of students didn't even come on test day. So if they had taken a class for most of the month, there would be no report. It would simply say repeat the class. So what we've done here is we've separated how they're judged on how well they're doing in class, and then their test scores. Okay, so now that we have these different PIP configurations, some of you will still be doing the everyday class, meaning you have to give test score and feedback all in 1 month, and the rest of you will be doing 2-month courses, meaning we've separated it a little bit more. Okay, so the same thing as SLE, there will be 2 feedbacks giving in a month based on how well they're doing in class, but the categories are a little bit different to SLE because we are looking at more sort of intensive focused skills than we are in SLE. Okay, so it's a very similar thing. We have a rubric, but the rubric now is out of 16 points for in-class performance because we don't need as many as SLE because we also have this test. Okay, so the categories that the students are tested on will be discussion participation. So this is the only one that's similar to SLE. In the sort of critical thinking and opinion exercises, how well are they doing? Writing assignments, so this will be the homework that you set. Okay, so before, homework was really just checked and it didn't add too much to the final score. But here you can actually be giving them a regular score on how well they're doing in the homework that they're given. Okay, and so here we do know we have students who basically just do as little as possible. So we can actually reference that. Okay. But then that goes all the way up to even low levels who are completing everything well and seeking feedback, for example. They'll get a higher score. Reading skills, how well are they developing critical thinking and comprehension? Okay, so getting past just looking for answers. And then target language use, because every book will introduce a certain amount that we're expecting. This one is a little bit linked to the test in that we are testing them on their speaking, but this rubric is simply for how are they doing in class. So for any reason, if your students do not come to the tests, or they finish after month 1 and don't do month 2, they will still get an overall report of their participation in the class. Okay. This is separate then to our testing. Okay, so those of you who have done PIP, have been doing it before, will know that we have that one progress test on day 15. That has changed now in that we have a presentation, which judges them on their speaking, and then we have a written test. At some levels, this will be a take-home assignment, and at some levels, this is an in-class assignment that they will do. But you just need to check on Canvas and your syllabus for which one that you're doing. Okay, so on a 2-month course, we do the speaking test in the first month, and we do the writing test in the second month. If you're doing the 1-month course, you will do them roughly 3 or 4 days apart. Okay, so you have time to concentrate on each one. So the topics and everything, again, that's on your syllabus and on Canvas, depending on the level. But when you come to judge the presentation, you will use this rubric. And we've kept it fairly simple, 16 points again, but you will use this only on the day of the presentation, and then we will key this in a slightly different way. So presentation is preparation, organization, content communication, and conclusion. So it looks at how well they put it together and how well they prepped for it. The writing assignment, which again is based on level, you will use the same writing rubric with slight modifications from the placement test. Okay, so in this one, they get a score out of 16, and this one, they get a score out of 25. So in total, to pass to the next course, they need to get 32 points for both tests combined out of 41. But where you have some students that maybe are slightly lower than that, but they've done really, really well in class, you might up their test score a little bit depending on how they've done in the class. So let's take a look at online. Okay, so very similar to SLE, you'll see a very similar form. And here you just need to check the categories are a little different and which of the 2 feedbacks am I doing. Okay, so obviously earlier in the month on day 7 or day 8, depending on which configuration, this is on the calendar, am I doing the first or the second one? And same thing as before, you go in for in-class performance, use the rubric, and give them their overall score. Okay, but the thing to be aware of is when you're doing this first one, the first 4, discussion, writing, reading, target language use, these are the in-class performance. So in the first feedback that you give, you cannot fill in this final one, which is the presentation score, okay? Presentation is always the first test, and writing is always the second. So to begin with, you just need to go through and key in class, and that will give you their score. Here it says 32 because that includes final tests, but we're still looking at 16 points, so make sure that your students are aware of this. Okay, and then same thing, go into strength, and write which have they done really well at, give them good, encouraging praise here. And then in advice, which are they maybe falling behind in? So that could be in in-class performance, their written homework is not up to standard, or in reading skills, they're still not really looking at critical thinking or discussing opinion. So with PIP, it's even more important to give real constructive advice here. Okay, and then once they've done the final test, the speaking test here in the first month, or the first one, here you'll notice the drop-down menu is out of 16. So again, using that presentation rubric, you decide how well have they done, and then here you'll put in an extra comment for each one, how they've done in their presentation. But of course, it's also important that you give them that feedback in class on their presentation more than just here. So we're only half complete here. We've just done the first one. Okay, when you go into the second one, so we know that we've done the first test and we've done the first participation score. On your attendance sheets, make sure you also keep a note of that so you know what did they get for their speaking presentation score. And then in the second one, whether this is second month or the second half of the month, depending on which one you're doing, we have the same in-class feedback here, and then we have the writing score. So this one will be very simple to do, same thing. You just need to go in and decide blah, 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 what did they get? The writing score, you'll notice, is different. Now it's out of 25 to match the rubric. Okay, so what you will do is decide for the writing. Okay, this person did very well, they got 22, and then we add the speaking score to that. Okay, so whatever out of 16 plus that, and then that you need to write in here. So in the strengths box, write for both tests, what did they get, because this is the final feedback. And then also give your final views on how well they've done in the month. Okay, so if for any reason the students haven't taken the test, you can use the in-class participation to really reference how they've done. Where they have taken both tests, make sure you add that together. So it will always be out of 21. Okay, so just look to the first month if you need to. What did they get out of 16 and what did they get for the writing, and put it here. Okay, and same thing, press the red button and that will go directly to them. But with all test feedback, obviously you will give those scores in class, give one-to-one feedback to the students. With the in-class performance, the students can go on and take a look in both English and Korean on how well they have done. Okay, so it's just making sure that you get all of this done online on the right days, that you know which rubric you're working with. Okay, so keep those separate. All of you will have the handout that shows them very clearly, and you can also find that on Canvas. But make sure on the days that you need to do this online feedback that you get it done by 5 p.m. Okay, at the latest. The first one, the one that we do on day 7 or day 8, is a general, how are we doing so far? How is the beginning of the course? Day 14 is important because, of course, from then on we have registration, so make sure you've also got that done. And then for both months for SLE and both months for PIP, just making sure that you remind the students to check if they can go on and take a look at it. But with PIP, the same as SLE, you don't need to print anything out until the final day of the course. Then you can print out both months or both times of the report and give that to the students. Okay, so in conclusion then, the system itself is fairly simple to use. The thing that might be a little bit confusing at the beginning is, of course, the rubric. But none of these rubrics will be anything too different from what you've already been using, particularly if you've been doing the placement test. So just make sure that you are familiar with those. The whole point of this is just to standardize our feedback and give more personal feedback to our students. Okay, the pass cards are gone. We won't be using anything like that again. PIP only being about testing, that will have gone. Okay, so it's more about a fuller and better evaluation. Okay, so please practice with those rubrics. Make sure they're not too confusing, too different the first time you use them, and make sure that you follow the calendar as closely as possible. Okay, we're trying to build a much better assessment system here, but of course we can only do that with your help.